Jeanette Collins, and I was appointed to the department. Hi, Fred. This is going to be a repeat for you, so you know. I was appointed to Director of Planning and Development on November 26th of last year, so I can tell you the last 2 months really have been a whirlwind. One of the things I've been trying to do is just get out a lot and make sure people know who I am so that they know who to call when they have questions on permitting, zoning, building permits, and even code compliance type cases. So let me give you just a quick overview of what the department does, and I don't know how much Vince had given you in the past, but I wanted to start with that. The Department of Planning and Development, of course, houses the Building Division, Land Development Division, which essentially oversees all of the zoning maps, and they process a lot of the site review applications and also special applications that go to our Planning and Development Commission. The Geographic Resources and Community Planning Division, which houses our long-range comprehensive plan. This is our 20-year plan that basically kind of gives you, first of all, it kind of gives you a report card of where the county is as far as public services and where we need to be in the next 20 years. And it comprises of a whole bunch of different elements that deal with all types of topics from transportation to housing to future land use, our conservation areas, environmental, parks and recreation, and the list goes on, our airports. So it's a really important document, especially for you as realtors. And we have that in our goals this year. I'm going to go over 3 major goals that we're looking at. Yeah, you hear me better now? Okay. 3 major goals that we're going to be looking at this year, which includes updating the comprehensive plan. And finally, we do have also the Code Enforcement Division. This is the division, of course, when there is non-compliance with any of the county's land development code or sometimes the code of ordinances. They go out and their goal is really to abate violations and try to work with those property owners to bring the properties back into compliance. So the first thing that I would say to you is, as realtors, when you're listing properties and you're doing your own due diligence to get all the facts right, to please always call our office, 527-5239, 527-5239, to make sure that the zoning is correct, the land use. I know a lot of folks rely on the property appraiser's office, and they're different entities. Sometimes their information is based on existing conditions of the property, so make sure that you always get the proper zoning by calling our office. So let me go over some of the major goals that we're proposing this year in my department. As you know, one of the big issues, and you've seen it in the paper, has been the development of the County Road 491 Corridor Overlay Plan. This is a project essentially for us from a planning agency. Really what it does is it creates a master plan for an area that is associated with the widening of the segment of 491 that essentially runs from State Road 44 northwards to County Road 46. And you saw the big roadway improvement that we've recently finished on County Road 486. This one essentially is also a corridor plan, which it looks at the surrounding land uses and tries to make sure that the properties that are coming out to this roadway will have adequate access management. But we did something a little bit different also with this project. We developed a study at the direction of the board and essentially looked at areas beyond the scope of 491 as it relates to 2 other initiatives by the board. One was to look at it in context of the impending Suncoast Parkway 2, which at this point there's talks about phasing it up to State Road 44, and we would have a major interchange there. And secondly is also that this area has already been developing as a medical community, and they wanted to be able to provide opportunities to expand some of those, the ability to expand our medical services in that area. So right now we're preparing the comprehensive plan amendment that would adopt the overlay. It goes to the Board of County Commissioners on February 25th, and if approved, the next big step for our office would be to start developing the land development regulations that would go into our land development code to implement this. Now, there's some misconceptions out there, and this is what I wanted to clarify. This is a vision plan. This is a vision plan. The only funding really that we have right now is for widening of 491 and some of the improvements that deal with intersections, and some of where the connecting roadways would be right onto 491. So we are doing some rezonings in the immediate area of 491, but essentially the entire project, when you look at the overall area of land, is approximately 2,600 acres. We're only rezoning approximately 325 at this time, and what it would do is allow for a bigger mix of land uses, whereas many of those properties right now are commercial. What we want to try to do is provide more opportunities for people to do more compact development and have a mix of uses within them. So the overall overlay really creates a master visionary plan via a conceptual network of interconnected roadways and associated regional infrastructure. And what it does is we looked at the existing stub outs of roadways that are out there, there's some little local roads, and we looked at the possibility that if this parkway does come through and this area does start developing, it's very important for us as a planning agency to start looking ahead as to where roadways could potentially go. So all this does really is create a conceptual plan of what we could potentially do to work with property owners to develop this particular area. It's really more of a voluntary concept right now, but by putting things in our comprehensive plan, what it does is it allows us to plan for the future, so that as we're developing our capital improvement plans of where we need to put infrastructure, we can look at the area, and if there is a demand, if market now is starting to look at these areas and there's a demand for growth, then at this point we can start putting resources towards those areas. So really the main intent of this plan is to manage growth and to have sustainable growth. And one of the things that it does do, because we're also working closely with the Economic Development Council, is if you read their 5-year strategic plan that was just put out, what it does is this type of project really would exemplify and is very consistent with the recommendations that were put out in their 5-year strategic plan. Next thing I wanted to talk about, which I alluded to earlier, was the update of the comprehensive plan. Back in early 2010, we did an evaluation or appraisal report of our comprehensive plan. Again, this is our 20-year plan where we look at, again, the existing infrastructure and where we need to be in the 20 years. And we're required to update this every 7 years. The state requires us to have a comprehensive plan, as it does of all 67 counties in the state. And we're required to basically do an evaluation of it, where it stands right now, and then where we need to update it. So we're a little behind, we're trying to catch up. It's really important that we update the data in that. So in this year, data needs to be updated. And this is not just important for us as a county to, again, know where to put our capital improvement programs, where to put the money for that, but it's also important for site selectors that are coming in from out of the county, because a lot of the ones when they're doing their due diligence, they call us and they want to see our comprehensive plan, and they want to know that the services are either there, or where they're going to be, and where we're projecting to be in the next 20 years. So it's a big source, and we need to get that information updated. Thirdly, I'll talk about the impact fee update. I know this is something that is kind of always a controversial topic, but it is a reality, and it is serve as a funding source for the Board of County Commissioners. Right now we have a contract with Duncan and Associates. They are putting together a draft version. We anticipate that they should. We had just reviewed it to make sure that we didn't find any inconsistencies or errors, that they did their study correctly, and they're getting ready to put the draft out. This is a document that does go before our Planning and Development Commission, and then it goes forward to the Board of County Commissioners for adoption. And as I said before, it's another source of funding for them. It's optional. You know, they're trying to do a balancing act of where are we going to get money if we have to make improvements to our roadways. Now what I'll tell you is impact fees can only be used for capacity adding capital improvements. And it's really a small piece of the funding pie that the board can even pull from, because it doesn't really generate that much money right now. We don't have anything coming in. There's no real substantial growth right now to really build some big pots. But it is something that they consider, and so when it goes to the board, they'll have the options to either adopt it at 100% of what the consultant will recommend. As you know, right now, the one that we have in place, the transportation section and the school section, they've adopted at 50% of the consultant's recommendation. Or they can recommend to not adopt, or if they adopt, they can also consider moratoriums. There's different things that they can actually do with it, but you know, I would invite you to just stay attuned. I'm sure it'll be in the paper, it'll be advertised, of course, and we need your input. It's important that we continue to communicate. So, like I said, continue to use our office as a resource. I'm trying to network more with not just the realtors, but we do with EDC, with the Builders Association, and I'm even involved with the Agricultural Association, Agricultural Alliance, pardon me. who are very active in our community also. So I asked, what does Vince usually bring to these meetings? I know that he tries to give you an update of what's going on in the development world. I asked for some of the numbers that we've had more recently. And this was put together by the building division, their annual statistics, and they went back quite a number of years. So for 2012, 2013, I guess what I'm pleased to announce is that we're starting to see a bit of an increase now in the number of permits that are actually being pulled. In single-family residential, these would be new homes. We actually saw from 2012 to 2013 a 38% increase. Now these are not big numbers. In 2012, we had 165 permits. In 2013, 228, but still we're seeing a little bit of an upward incline. That's always good news. Non-residential between 2012 and 2013 was about a 35% increase. 2012 numbers with 366 permits, again dealing with non-residential. When I say non-residential, I mean all the commercial type, it includes industrial, anything that's not residential. And then in 2013, we saw 494 units, so permits, pardon me. Now, let me say that when I'm talking about permits, I'm talking about any kind of permit. It could be anything from a simple changeover of their power all the way to new construction. So I know that's a lot of numbers, and for instance, this last year, since January, in non-residential, we've only seen about 20 permits for new type construction. But still, what we're starting to see is that non-residential is starting to invest more in their properties. I think they're looking at ways to diversify their businesses. So we're seeing a lot of things like even restaurants are wanting to do patios outside and offer a little bit of a different venue for customers. So we're seeing people putting money back into their property, and we're also seeing some things coming in the door. And and of course, we do see the Dollar Generals. We did just receive a permit for Dollar General that would go on East Gulf to Lake Highway in Inverness. This is just east of East Forest Drive intersection. We received a permit for GNC Nutrition Store, which is going to go into the existing retail plaza at the corner of US 19 and 98. That's that Publix plaza down there. So we're starting to see some things coming in that are new. The humanitarians are looking to go into the former Serenity Day Spa that's on North Commerce Terrace that's been sitting closed. We did receive also a planned unit development. This is somebody wants to create a master plan, and they're coming through our planning process to establish a master plan for a 76-lot residential subdivision, which would also house an assisted living facility. This is on Oak Park Boulevard in Homosassa. And we received also an Atlas Amendment, which is a rezone, essentially, and they had gone through a comprehensive plan in 2010, I want to say it was 2010, kind of sat on it. They're now coming through to establish their master plan for an RV park with 55 lots, and this would be on West Halls River Road in Homosassa. So things are starting to wake up a little bit. They're starting to wake up. It's slow, but like I said, we are seeing a little bit of an upward trend. That's what I have. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am.
Actually, I have two questions. When you were speaking, you said if the Suncoast comes through.
Yeah, it's a big
Now,
if.
we were told, I believe, last year, not the year before that, it was coming through.
Turning showings this year.
Yeah. So now we're getting two different things here.
What do you mean what's coming through?
We were actually told, and I'm not gonna give Vincent trouble.
Okay. He's not a Carl. He doesn't care.
We were actually told they were acquisitioning property.
They are.
And they were moving forward.
They are. What they've been doing, their plans are what they call 60% plans, which means the state has already done their studies that they need to do. They know the selected alignment path. And what they've done is they're putting so much funding every year to do what they call voluntary acquisitions. And they are. Especially in that area that's south of 44, they're starting to buy pieces as they become available. So things for realtors to look out for. They are starting to acquire, but it's on voluntary. In other words, they're not specifically calling people, but if something comes up on the market,
Okay, you just kind of scared me because it went from, okay, it's happening to,
well, and here's the thing, because the state of Florida right now, Florida Department of Transportation, and mind you, they're actually, while they're obviously both under the state, they're a little bit different than the Turnpike Authority. But what Florida Department of Transportation is actually doing right now is they're doing a study of their Future Florida Corridors plan. A lot of that's out there online that you can look at. And they developed several study areas throughout the state. What's interesting is that Citrus County is in 2 of those study areas. One of them stems from Tampa up to Jacksonville, and the other one stems from Tampa area out east towards Miami. And we fall in both of those. And they have prioritized those studies. And what's happening is they've got some major issues with I-75 right now with the traffic that's on there. They're trying to find means to move, to be able to move goods. And the truckers are having problems getting their goods from here to there. So essentially, they're starting to revisit existing facilities that were kind of sitting on the table but just sat there, and where they want to prioritize their funding. So there's even talk now about looking at the Turnpike and extending it west towards our way and even tying it into this. Very futuristic. It's just more or less they're doing studies. Some of the studies, they're putting a little bit more emphasis on the East Coast because there's some issues out there too, especially around the area that was built around Lake Nona. They've got some major traffic hurdles that they need to get over in that area.
Okay.
Which is interesting because that's a medical city that's growing right now.
Thank you. The other question was, you were talking about impact fees. Are they looking at changing them?
Yes, that's what the impact fee study would determine as to whether we're required to look at them by board policy every 3 years to basically see whether they actually reflect what the proportionate share is of what a developer should pay. And again, remember that it's a fee basically. What you're saying is somebody's coming into an area, they're going to generate an impact. It looks at what that impact would be on the roadways, how many trips they're going to put on a roadway. In case of homes, how many children are they going to potentially put in schools? How much need is there to have more books in our library? They look at all the impacts on government, and the study does an assessment based on the cost of what it costs government to build these facilities. They then determine that proportionate share of what that particular business, what their cost would be.
Okay.
And it's broken up into districts. I mean, the impact fee is a lot, but it's really a whole bunch of separate accounts that deal with different government services. So when you pay the fee, part of it goes to transportation, part of it goes to emergency management, part of it goes to law, part of it goes to libraries, part of it goes to government buildings. There's a whole bunch of different accounts. We're required to update it every so many years because the dollars change. Right now, it may cost us less to construct something than it did years ago. So to make it equitable, fair, and make sure that that nexus is there, that true nexus of what it really would cost, they have to update it every 3 years. So what the Duncan does and Associates is they do a study of everything that we did, and they try to update what those costs are, and then they do that proportionate share as to what the impact fee should be so that they're fair. And it has to be legally defensible also, so it's important that we hire a consultant that knows what they're doing. And so, yes, the numbers could very well change. I'm going to take a leap of faith and say that most likely they would be down. But I haven't seen all of the final figures. Like I said, we're waiting on this draft, and then at that point it's going to be put out there for the public, and we'll start going through hearing processes. And in the end, it's the board's determination how they want to adopt them and what they want to do with these figures.
They do take into account our surrounding counties.
Yes, they do. That's something that the consultant's very well aware of, and yes. But it has to be based on our costs too. But yes, they do that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
The property in front of the new Lecanto Walmart, I see they're putting up a McDonald's. Anything else
Yes.
going on?
No, let me see, because I get a lot of questions on that project, because that was probably the largest project that we've had coming into the county most recently. Originally we had Target looking at us, but they're used to looking, they want to be on larger roadways. There was some issues, they backed out, and then of course Walmart came in. And the developer continued the process with the county to develop the site. I have my numbers here somewhere. I don't.
Could you just repeat your phone number again for us?
Oh, the number for zoning is is 527-5239. That's actually the Land Development Division. Maybe I don't have it. Anyway, what I can tell you, that's a fairly large project. The Walmart in there is about 130,000 square feet. There's still room for another 260-something square feet of gross retail area. It actually would have 7 out parcels. The McDonald's took the site on the corner. There's also internal parcels that you could have some additional shopping areas and a second anchor area. It's a very large project, and I know the developer has been diligently looking to try to fill those areas, but it is what it is right now. And I don't have any further information than the McDonald's. Am I done?
You're done.
Thank you very much.
We'll take that away from you.